you think about this part of the country and on up into the Wyoming, Oklahoma, Montana, one of the common things that happened back in the mid-1800s to the 1900s would be somebody would leave and never come back. And you'd never know. You'd never know. Did they die? Did they just not decide not to come back, and you didn't know what was going on? So kind of wrote this one. It started out about one particular story and ended up being more generic. So it was set in southern New Mexico, Arizona, and this Spanish lady. This is just generic, but name was Chevalier. And she was married to this fellow, and right after they got married, he disappeared. And the song kind of goes along with that. Te quiero más, that's what she said. He said, I love you, and he asked her to wed. But then one day, he left, never returned. He said he'd hurry back, that he'd miss her so. Told you. Start over, okay? Please don't yell. Makes it worse. Te quiero más, that's what she said. He said, I love you, and he asked her to wed. Then one day, he left, never returned. He said he'd hurry back, that he'd miss her so. Seems like forever, such a long time ago. We searched the hills, stagecoach trails, the deserts. Chevalier, you won't give up, you won't stop dreaming. Hope is a blanket, you keep on weaving, but he's gone. Gone, gone. Hope is a blanket, you keep on weaving. Hope is fading, and in your grieving, you hear gone. And the hardest part is in the not knowing. Your heart says, I'll wait a little bit longer. I'll wait. Winters were the hardest. It wasn't for the cold. She could tend the cattle. There was no one there to hold. When she made her coffee, she'd pour him a cup. When she was sleeping, it was in his shirt. Today it marks it, year 44. She's waited so long and she looks out the door. There's no dust on the trail. Tonight the sun goes down. Tonight she'll lay her head down on his pillow. One last time she'll hear the wind blow. She opens her eyes, he's right there with her. She holds him so tight, he says, I love you. Te quiero más. Hope was the blanket she kept on weaving. She laid her head down on his pillow. They'll be together every night 'cause he's home. Hope was the blanket she kept on weaving. Laid her head down on his pillow. They'll be together again now that they're home. Thanks.
I don't know whether to clap or say amen.
So anyway, that's just that was a common occurrence, and man, I just thought how hard that is, and kind of took some of the experiences. I work with hospice, and some experience. I do grief counseling, and some of the experiences people have had, and how they honor the memory of the person they've lost, and know what that's like. And our goal in that grief, those grief sessions, is to move from where we feel like our world's crumbling and we're mourning and grieving over the loss of our loved one, to coming to a place where we're living our life honoring the memory of the person that we lost. And sometimes for people that's like a light bulb, but when you can get moving in that direction and find that thing that you're going to live for, that event or something about them that you're going to make it yours, and you keep them alive that way, then that's where the healing starts. So.
We have a special guest with us all the way, I think, from Indiana. How far you? We live Indiana? Okay. She drove the furthest this year. She and her husband came down to be with us, and the one reason she came down, she got in touch with me over a book she wants to write, or a dissertation or a project about Cynthia Ann Parker. And I said, you got to come meet these beautiful people here that come with us and be at the actual site where it occurred. So I want to call her up here, and you have 30 minutes worth.
Y'all are tall. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I don't usually do microphones. This is weird. My voice usually carries all by itself. I am really super honored to be here and to have had the invitation by Ron and to have met so many of you and talked to you, because without your support, research like what we want to do would not get done, and then these histories would not get continually shared and talked about. People wouldn't get a chance to hear alternative perspectives, and that's kind of the angle that I'm taking. So I am working on my humanities PhD, but I have a focus in public history and women and gender studies. And I met Cynthia Ann when I was about 10 years old, reading a romance novel that I wasn't supposed to be reading off of my mother's bookshelf. Lucia St. Clair Robeson's historical fiction, which has some pretty seedy moments in it, were probably not appropriate for a 10-year-old. But she's been kind of on my heart the whole time since then, and I've always kind of kept coming back around. Became fascinated with the way that her story just persists throughout time. And so the dissertation I'm writing looks at all of those popular culture, those artifacts. So I'm looking at an opera from 1939. I don't know if all of you realized there was an opera written about Cynthia Ann, but there was. And I'm looking at the movie, The Searchers with John Wayne in all of its glory. I have the comic book I was sharing with you earlier, reading some from it. It was written in the 70s. And then I have Lucia St. Clair Robeson's book from the 80s. And then recently I started to pull out, there's some new juvenile fiction that has come out. And it seems like all these people throughout this whole time, they're fascinated by this story by Cynthia Ann. And they want to share it. And it changes as you look at it. The details that kind of come and go, and the feeling you get behind when you read it changes from 1939 and the way people thought about Native cultures to 2018. Things have changed and expanded. And so my love of history comes from being able to tell those other sides that maybe haven't been told as much. So I'm going to write this dissertation. I'm going to graduate. I keep saying that in a very affirmative way. I'm going to write this dissertation and I'm going to graduate. Yes, I'm going to get out. But I had mentioned to Ron that long term, what I would really like to be able to put out is a different kind of story, a different kind of book. Cynthia Ann's story has always been told very much from the Texas Anglo perspective. And I haven't encountered a story yet that's documented in written form about her legend as it was told from the Comanche. And so that's my long-term goal, is to be able to work with Ron and others to say, what is it the Comanche would like to have out there told about Cynthia Ann? Because it's obvious that her story means something to a lot of people. And so I hope to be able to work with and use these skills I'm learning in graduate school, I guess, to put that out. So you'll see me walking around with my camera, my little audio recorder. I've learned so much from you already. It was great to get to stand down in the river. It's great to be on the site. I plan to go to Groesbeck soon and go to the Parker's Fort, where it kind of all started. Met some good scholarly friends who I hope that we will maintain connections and share some archival stuff. But if you feel like you're in the mood and you want to corner me, we can go to the TP or somewhere a little bit quiet, and you can talk to me about what Cynthia Ann means to you, why you're here, if it's related to Cynthia Ann, is what I'm really interested in hearing, what you've heard about her story and why you think it's important. Because I'm not really interested in truth. I know that a lot of historians are. I'm not interested in truth because what fascinates me is the way the story gets told. It's the way that the memory gets shared and how those memories change and what gets appreciated. So it doesn't matter to me what you heard or how you've heard it. I'm just interested in collecting and documenting those things. So I am incredibly grateful to be here, and I'm happy to talk to anybody and answer any questions about what I have done. I also brought some of the artifacts I'm using, so I have the comic book with me. If you haven't seen it, you want to see it. I have some of the juvenile fiction. I brought my very, very worn copy of Ride the Wind that started this whole thing. The cover's like falling off of it, and Lucia promised me an autograph in September when I get to meet her. So, and she sent me a print, which was pretty awesome. So, but if you're aware of any other artifacts that are out there, paintings, other music, any kind of cultural production that would be out for the general population to see, if you share those with me and tell me about those, that would be incredibly beneficial. It would help add to the complexity of this study. Everybody back east is incredibly excited about this study as well. So I want to get it out. But that's kind of what I'm here for.
Ron, what was Kara's name that did the presentation what was the actress's name, Kara, that did the presentation on Cynthia Ann at Quanah Railroad Depot?
They want to do the soap operas?
No, the one that does the one-act play.
One woman show that did the deal of Cynthia Ann.
You talking about
Kara,
Sarah McReynolds?
Yeah, probably. Kara McReynolds.
Kara, y'all know someone named Kara?
It's Sarah, isn't it? Sarah McReynolds does it at powwows and other things. This was a different gal. She and her son did a performance. She sets up a teepee and does the story of Nodula. I'll try to find out. There's a video of it.
When he gets here, we can ask him.
Sparky will know. Yeah. She set up right there in front of the railroad station in Quanah and did it. That was the year the storm came through, and I pulled the Baldwin story. I asked if anybody had a linen napkin, and I hung it up the tree and did the same that he did, and that storm went right around us. It rained 100 yards outside and all the way around it, but not where we were sitting.